Democratic socialism. It's not the same as socialism.
Oh look, Stephen Crowder is talking about socialism again. A economic system he knows nothing about.
Democratic socialism. It's not the same as socialism, because it's democratic, right?
Democracy is a political system of government, while socialism is an economic system. It is quite easy to understand. Democratic socialists advocate for workplace democracy and collective ownership of the means of production, alongside a democratic political system. Your remark about socialism is just drivel.
As though adding the word democratic in front of a word changes what it means. Just because we toss something to a vote doesn't change what that something is.
It does, actually. For example, a democratically elected monarch would be far more different than a hereditary monarchy.
Couple of examples, because I know you'll ask. Hamas was democratically elected as the government in Gaza, despite the fact that the destruction of not only Israel, but the eradication of all Jews is in their official charter. Robert Mugabe, or Bobby Mugabe if you prefer, was democratically elected by a loving majority in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, how's that working out?
His argument here seems to be that sometimes people elect bad leaders. Is that a surprise to anyone? I think it's pretty straightforward. But you do know what you can do in a democracy? Vote bad governments out. Something you cannot do in a dictatorship.
Venezuela? Well, Hugo Chavez, noted personal favorite and friend of Sean Penn, to whom he constantly pointed as being unfairly characterized as a dictator when in
Hugo Chavez was unfairly categorized as a dictator. When he was in power, the election process in Venezuela was not only monitored by dozens of international organizations, but was also described as the best in the world by the former US President Jimmy Carter. In fact, every single election that Chavez fought was monitored by international observers. But of course, the US conservative movement, known for their hatred of democracy, always carry on like this when their side loses elections. Now they are claiming that even the US elections are rigged.
Well, how'd that work out for Venezuela? Well,
GDP per capita more than doubled, poverty declined, unemployment declined, and infant mortality plummeted. That was his economic record when he died in 2013. That is why he was so popular.
it's now on the brink of collapse, despite it being one of the most resource-rich nations in the entire world. Basic things like eggs, milk, flour, and toilet paper are either too expensive for the average Venezuelan or simply out of stock. Out of stock, mind you, democratically.
The reason why Venezuela is in trouble at the moment is because of the plummeting oil price. The country has an over-reliance on oil. Venezuela has faced similar circumstances before. In the 20 years before the socialists were elected, Venezuela's GDP declined by 20% under various neoliberal governments.
I know. Some of you will say, well, that's not fair because really we knew all along it technically was a dictatorship. Okay, that's fair. Let's move on to example number 2.
Not according to the international election observers, but then again, contempt for democracy is what all right-wingers share, whether they be conservatives or fascists.
Denmark? Okay, here's the time where you point to an entirely homogeneous population, about 1/60th the size of America's, and you point to that as the blueprint. Okay, let's go there.
Most of the Scandinavian states are social democratic, which is basically regulated capitalism with a welfare state. That is not socialism. In fact, the only nation in Scandinavia that comes close to being considered partly socialist is Norway, which has great collectivized industries that are used to benefit the entire Norwegian population.
The fact is that over time, the greatest enemy of socialism is reality. The reality that human nature will invariably pull certain people toward individualism and success, and others toward laziness and collectivism. The tension between the makers and the takers always leads to socialism's inevitable collapse.
Actually, socialists believe that those who work hard deserve more. Let me give you an example. Gina Reinhardt inherited the largest iron ore reserves in the world from her father, Lane Hancock. Who is responsible for the wealth? The people who work on the mines, or Gina Reinhardt, who sits in her inherited mansion demanding that workers be paid $2 a day? So who deserves more credit? Is it the capitalist parasite or the workers who extract the minerals?
You won't care. Because at least socialism is inherently more morally altruistic than the evil, greedy, capitalist warmongering seen in the West. Greed? What's more greedy than wanting to take from someone else something that you haven't earned?
That is what capitalists like Gina Reinhardt do every day. Her wealth is based on extracting minerals from the earth. The workers extract the minerals while she reaps the benefits, getting rich off their labor.
Unlike capitalism, free enterprise, which can only occur truly through voluntary transaction,
In a capitalist society, the majority of the population have to exchange their labor for a wage. If they can't find work, then they would have to struggle on welfare in order to survive. How is that voluntary? Those who own the means of production can use their power to exploit workers, knowing that quite a few workers are desperate for the money.
socialism can only occur at gunpoint. That's what it comes down to. If you don't pay your taxes, once you get through the IRS and the auditing and the lawyers and the PR stunts, people make you give the government your money, an increasing amount of your money, the more successful you are, or they send in scary men with guns to take you away.
Taxes are used to pay for the government that protects private property, used to pay for the police that protects private property, and the military that protects the nation from attack. Remember, you cannot have capitalism without a government. That is just a basic fact. Also, you will find that the machinery of the state is often used to repress workers in capitalist systems. Just look at the Battle of Orgreave and the Battle of Wapping in the UK. All involved the arch-hypocrite Thatcher sending in the police to battle trade unionists, a non-government entity.
Did you get that? American wannabe socialists also. Get a job.
Stereotype reinforced.
Workshops, scroungers, layabouts. You've forced yourself out of jobs and have only yourselves to blame. Vote Conservative. I shall have my Milky Bar now, please, Mother.
Please, like a real job.
I love it when conservative comedians and journalists tell others to get real jobs when they offer no positive contribution to society at all. In fact, I would argue that they are actually detrimental to society, and we would be better off without conservative comedians and conservative journalists. Useless jobs that don't benefit anyone.